Donald Trump's attorneys will have had 36 hours to pull their next strategy together for Stormy Daniels on the stand tomorrow. What are you looking for?
Well, and this is tough because there is a huge power imbalance between these two people, between Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump. And Susan Necheles, who is this lawyer, who's the female defense lawyer.
The best lawyer Trump has.
The best. But she has really been just trotted out for this Stormy Daniels cross. So I think it'll be really interesting to see. I read some reporting from people who were in the courthouse who said that perhaps the jury did not love her beating up on the witness. And I've read other reporting that there have been other cases where she's been hard on female witnesses. I'm not sure that plays in the way she's hoping it will. Again, this is a jury case, so you have a jury to appeal to.
Mark, how hard do you think Trump's team is going to go after Stormy Daniels, especially when you think about his demands on his attorneys and all the gory details she went into yesterday?
I think they're going to be pretty aggressive. I mean, I think that that's what Trump wants. I think that that's what he expects. And I think that they feel that there's enough credibility holes in the testimony to take it apart. And particularly when you have the judge himself questioning whether or not some of what her testimony should have been included, you know, which just throws up flares for everybody about whether or not it could be appealed.
To that very point, we heard a lot of graphic details from Stormy Daniels. Trump loyalists, we know they're going to side with him no matter what. But what about independent, the gettable voters out there? Do those dirty details hurt Trump, or maybe even the reverse?
I don't think that at the end of the day the dirty details matter at all. Everybody's familiar with what likely happened. And, you know, the only surprise that if he paid her not to have sex, right? That's what they find problematic. But we, you know, Molly said, you know, at the end of the day, does any of this legal stuff matter in the election? And I think that in an election that could be decided by 10, 20, 30,000 votes in 3 states, you know, we do know that if he, no matter what the, you know, people say this is the weakest case, blah, 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 at the end of the day, there could be an offense out there. I don't like about, you know, voting for somebody who's found guilty of any crime.
Right.
No matter what it is. And
that could be that high of
that could be enough.
Yeah.
But you're also trying to convince evangelicals that they should stick with this guy after he...
Molly. We're not even. They're with him.
Mike Pence is not
and
with
their
them.
argument is God chooses strange messengers. They have already figured out why and how they can reconcile being with Trump, and they ain't leaving. Joyce, if you're the prosecution, what are you hoping for in what happens with this cross-examination? What are you hoping Stormy does?
Well, you're hoping that she'll actually be even better on cross-examination than she was on direct. That's a phenomenon that you see sometimes with a witness who's being pushed heavily on cross-examination. And sometimes, you know, they will simply grow a spine and dig in and become very insistent. Because you'll recall, Steph, in opening statement, Trump's lawyers said that what Stormy Daniels would testify to was a lie. And now the burden is on them to deliver on that promise. And if she holds up well on cross-examination, it really makes inroads into their credibility.
I feel like what is left for her to tell us, but the prosecution has made it clear they're going to redirect. What else do they want to get from her?
Well, they'll clean up anything that happens in cross-examination. If she falters, if she gets cut off from explaining something, they'll be able to redirect her attention to make sure that the jury is focused on the evidentiary points that they need them to be focused on. You know, Stormy Daniels' testimony is interesting, I think, in this sense that people view this as a case that, in addition to having legal consequence, also has political consequence. But the prosecution needs to prove the elements of the case. And a big one is to convince the jury that Donald Trump was a part of this scheme. And the fact that Stormy Daniels' story is something that would have been so damaging to him had it come out ahead of the election, that's an important thing for the jury to understand.
Joyce, you kind of lit a candle of hope today for a whole lot of people who are feeling hopeless. And you said, you wrote that after 25 years as a federal prosecutor, you have faith in the jury system no matter what happens. Why?
Look, you know, that's not to say that there aren't sometimes juries that go astray, but by and large, 12 Americans possessed of common sense and good attention spans will reach the right result in a courtroom. And what happens is we're observers. You know, we're able to read the transcript in this case. Sometimes we're able to watch trials on TV. But the jury is there for every minute of the proceedings. They hear the witnesses. They take instruction from the judge on the law. They can evaluate the witness's demeanor on a first-hand basis. And they take their job very seriously. Juries are not cavalier about the responsibility. In this case, I expect that they're paying close attention, that they'll deliberate carefully, and that they'll reach a verdict based on the evidence, and that if prosecutors do their job, they'll convict.
All right, I know I'm bombarding you with questions, but turn to Georgia with us for a moment, Joyce. An appeals court there now might disqualify Fani Willis. If she would have recused herself months ago, would we be in trial territory at this point?
You know, it's tough to say. There are so many variables here, but the reality is that what the Court of Appeals in Georgia will do is they will decide whether or not the trial judge, Judge McAfee, got it right. They're reviewing his decision. They will accord him broad discretion. I think it's unlikely that they'll reverse him. So the real issue here is the amount of time it will take. It'll probably take months. And then, of course, whichever party loses in the Court of Appeals will almost certainly take an appeal to the Georgia Supreme Court. So it's less the ultimate outcome of this case and whether or not what Fani Willis did was correct at the beginning. This was always going to go on this appellate path once the issue arose. And it's unfortunate. You know, I think we all have views about why we got here, but the reality is this case is now delayed severely.
Delay. In Florida, delayed indefinitely. Now, Georgia, it has been a rough few days for Jack Smith and Fani Willis. Mark, do you think we are going to see any progress here before the election and after the election? Do you think these trials are ever going to happen?
Well, I don't know. But, I mean, the key question is anything going to happen before the election? And I think the answer is no. The days of magical legal thinking are over. The cavalry is not coming. The legal cavalry is not coming to the rescue of Joe Biden, which is, I think it's good. I think voters should focus on the election. The way to beat Donald Trump is not in court ultimately, but at the ballot box. That's the way you humiliate him. That's take away his power, take away his standing with voters, and do it legally, do it straightforward at the ballot box.
Look, these are the guardrails not holding, right? This is a guy who spent $100 million, the New York Times said $100 million to punt these cases. He's hired the best lawyers. I think we're still going to see this criminal case, the New York case, but I don't know that we'll see any other cases.
Did he hire the best lawyers?
Well,
or is Aileen Cannon in his pocket, and did he get wildly lucky in Georgia? Come on.
I would say
Alina Habba, the best lawyer?
No, she is not the best lawyer, but Todd Blanche is a pretty good lawyer. I mean, he's had some pretty good lawyers, and he's also had millions and millions and millions of dollars. And so he's managed to punt a lot of this stuff. I think he also got lucky. And I think the Supreme Court, I mean, you listen to those two justices, Thomas and Alito, they have really done for him what few thought they would.
Then let's talk politics, Mark, because we now have two Democratic senators who are now publicly going after Aileen Cannon. And I completely get why they feel that way. But is it a gift to Trump for politicians to weigh in? Because he loves to argue that all of these cases are rigged. It's all about politics. It's Democrats pushing the DOJ.
Yeah, the more for him, the better. I mean, who would have thought, if on paper a year ago that a nominee for a major party would be indicted 4 times, 91 counts, and be stronger after all of that than he was before it. And so for Trump and his base particularly, the more partisan it gets and the more partisan the attacks are on the judges, it makes their point. It makes judges' point. It says they're coming for you, they've got to go through me. And it's just a partisan attack. How
about tomorrow when Trump goes back to court? Rick Scott of Florida is going to be by his side, the latest contestant in the Veep sweepstakes. What do you think about this?
Well, I mean, everybody's trying to shine his shoes, as close as
I haven't seen Melania show up. Yeah, so
or
I'm not
Don
sure.
Jr. or Ivanka.
Not everybody's trying to shine his shoes. Not his wife, his firstborn daughter, his firstborn son. So I wouldn't say everybody's showing.
Well, everybody trying to be vice president.
Nikki Haley.
Everybody that wants to be in the Oval Office next to Donald Trump.